Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Thrown Out. Tonight we are joined by Andrew/Frank.
Hello.
Not Andy RC, but Andy BMFA.
Good evening, everyone.
Everyone's Christmas calendar wish list. Sexy boy, NJ Tech.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, I'm sure I started lactating then a little bit. My little Tony.
Monster.
And everyone's favourite Curry Kitten.
Hello.
And I'm Bright Till I Fly. Tonight we are, and
Too late. Get the sparklers out.
thank you, Zero FBV, for donating Tony Light Sparkler.
Oh God, it's already started. While Tony's doing that, what I'll do is I will get. Tony. I'm not putting it in my mouth. Zero, this one's for you. Andy, let's kick off just with what do you get to fly at the moment, if anything?
Currently, very little. I've been flying RC since about 2000, and it's been sport, fixed wing flying, sort of what you would call the traditional club models. Joined my first club in 2000. Got involved in the club side of things, running things by mistake. I've, over the years, forgot to step back when volunteers keep getting asked for. So after about 3 months being in the club, I was the club secretary, and then a few months later, I was the area secretary. Currently, my flying tends to be electric foamies that I can chuck in the back of the car, or if I'm having, a day at BMFA Buckminster, for example, I've one or two here that I can pop out and have a fly every now and then. I have two multirotors. The problem I have with them at the moment is there seems to be a button on my transmitter quite aggressively. But I think that's more my incompetence than anything else. So they are both under repair, shall we say, at the moment. No, they're great fun. I enjoy flying anything, to be honest. From over the years, I've flown big aerobatics, third scale World War I models, a lot, and it's just a great thing to be doing, isn't it? It's switching your brain off or just concentrating on one thing and enjoying it, and that's when you're working hard and you've got half a dozen things on your brain, just half an hour just thinking of the one thing, it's relaxing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Andy, what is your current responsibility at the BFMA for the people watching? Not because I forgot to read the show notes.
Yeah. I'm the BMFA's club support officer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. No, you have
my deepest sympathy.
Cheers. It's actually endlessly entertaining, I've got to be honest. I consider myself quite lucky in that it's a very enjoyable, very varied job.
Stop it, or we'll lose Frank.
All right, so you're falling asleep. Sorry, Frank.
No. I mean, he might join you rather than being tortured by us.
All right, well, come on over. It's a place to be.
Frank, I swear to God.
Yeah. I mean, my primary sort of responsibility with the role is assisting clubs wherever they require assistance, from helping with planning applications, dealing with noise complaints. Sadly, and all too often, helping mediate with disputes. These things do happen, unfortunately. But when you get a decent group of people around with differing opinions, disputes happen.
Just quickly on that. So when you say disputes, we're not talking necessarily about between members of the public and the club. We're talking about internally, club members, etc.
Occasionally, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's between the public and the club. They tend to be noise-related issues. But no, within a club, you do get the odd fallout, as you do in any group. It's not just model flyers; it's everything. I'm a member of a cycling club, and the same thing happens. It's just life, isn't it? So, but as I say, it's endlessly entertaining, so varied, and keeps me very, very occupied.
Yes, I bet. So we can safely say mediation's a substantial part of the job role.
Substantial is probably not the word I would use. It is part of the job role.
Right.
You know, I tend to be, well, I think I'm fairly good at it because I tend to be fairly calm and with a very thick skin as well. So people think I'm fat. So
to back up just a couple of steps, just because we've got quite a few people who might be recent to the hobby or might be not in the UK. BMFA generally, what is it?
Right, the British Model Flying Association. How much information? I could bore the pants off you now for an hour if you like. This is like my normal club talk. We are, well, over 100 years been going in one form or another. But it's the body recognised by people like the FAI, the Royal Aero Club, the CAA for governing, I'm going to say, the sport of recreational and sporting model aircraft flying. Decades of experience and decades of an excellent track record of safe operation by members, which is invaluable when it comes to dealing with people like the CAA. You know, it's all about credibility, I suppose, at the end of the day.
You're not lighting one for green patches, are you, Tony? That's Canadian ruples. They're not worth anything. He doesn't realise he's muted because it sounded like he was eating packets of crisps.
In fact, thank you, Rob Britton, as well, for your contribution. That was Green Patch's one. Sorry to interrupt, but
you will get that, Andy. So safe operation. So that's why we're getting regulated, is it? Fantastic.
I think the primary reason, to be honest, we're getting regulated is media hysteria. I think we all know that. I think
definitely agree on that.
You know, anybody who is always going to be responsible will be responsible and will abide by whatever regulations come in. Those that are determined not to will, you know, will avoid them, won't they?
If we leave diving into that for a little bit to let people join, so we're not going over the same thing again later.
No. Sorry, I thought I'd just chuck it in there.
Jack's just trying to stir up trouble.
Yeah, I know. NJ, name 3 things that go on lists.
Anyway, so moving back to the questions that our lovely patrons have sent to us. So you were talking about clubs and mediating with clubs and all that sort of thing, because that's your speciality. We had a few people asking on one side of things, how can clubs, or how are sort of BMFA helping clubs integrate multi-rotors into clubs, into their environment, and on the other hand, for people who haven't had much luck with their local clubs, how can you start one of your own that's maybe a bit more multi-rotor friendly?
Right, well, there's 2 aspects of that, so we'll take the first bit first. In terms of integrating multi-rotors into general club flying, there's no difficulty at all. It's very straightforward as long as you've got the space to do it, and everybody wants to be cooperative, work together, and where clubs are like that, it works very, very well. I spend a lot of time actively encouraging clubs to embrace all aspects of what we do, but fully appreciate that at the end of the day, what happens at a club and what activities take place has to be up to the club members. You know, that's the way it is. We wouldn't dream of going along to a club saying you must do this, you must accept this. That's not how it works, and certainly I would be happy doing that. So it's encouragement is the way for pointing out a few facts that all multi-rotor flyers aren't hooligans that want to go around, you know, breaking the law. There's a small minority of people in all aspects of everything.
Yeah,
unfortunately now, I think the biggest problem we have now is it's never been easier to show the world that you're being a little bit silly. And this is the problem, and people jump on that, and it does lead to a negative perception. So it's hard work, battling that, because much of it's a social media problem. It's great, it's social media, but it's a double-edged sword. It's great for getting information out quickly, but equally, there's so much misinformation gets out there quickly. Nobody knows whether they read anything that's correct or not, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Peter Marshall was, who's one of our patrons, specifically was asking, because he'd seen about that there's the multi-rotor certs, the A certs and B certs, which are kind of like the BMFA kind of accredited competency kind of thing.
Yes.
But he's trying to find a club that actually has the experience to be able to certify someone with the A and B, or even just the A cert with the multi-rotor. And he's kind of struggling to find anyone who's got that experience. How can someone find a club like that?
I mean, they are a fairly recent introduction now, the multi-rotor certificates, the A and the B, and of course the basic proficiency certificate. Any BMFA examiner, whether it's fixed wing, multi-rotor, helicopter or silent flight, can actually take the A test. So there are thousands of examiners out there. When it comes to a B test, from a purely pragmatic approach, the initial thing that we did was say, right, your helicopter examiners could act as the lead examiners. Traditionally, shall we say, if you wanted to take a fixed wing B, the lead examiner needed to be a fixed wing examiner. Until we have multi-rotor examiners, which we are now starting to get, the sensible approach was for your helicopter examiners to take it. And yes, we're aware, and we know that there's been criticism that the tests are nothing more than the helicopter test rejig. And yeah, that's a legitimate point. I'm not sure it's worthy of criticism. The tests do what the tests do, and I think it's important to recognise that the A and the B have always been, for the 40 years they've been in existence, tests of the piloting abilities. And I think what's happened with the technology, you've now got, it's not the piloting ability that's the essential thing anymore. There is a lot more involved, which is why we brought the basic proficiency certificates in, which sort of did away with some of the requirements on the A test. But in terms of him finding somebody to do his test, what he does is drop me an email and we'll find him someone.
Yeah, I suppose one of the reasons we have that kind of shift in when you're talking about it not just being about the pilot, I presume what we're talking about here is the fact that you've got the craft's able to self-stabilize. There's no kind of there's more control taken away from the pilot in terms of moving the GPS coordinates, etc. They're all things that are fairly commonplace on drones. Whereas most helicopters, I know this is starting to become quite common for flybarless helicopters now to have similar technologies integrated into them too. Have the tests updated for the helicopter side of where that's now a thing?
They updated a few years ago. The issue again there was, the tests were designed to be test piloting, and we were while of course the flybarless controllers, we wanted to find a way of accepting them without, shall we say, and I don't want to be derogatory at all, coming down tests that were taken previously, if that makes sense. So that, all the A and the B certificates carry the same value. If you make a test easier, which is potentially could have happened, you then devalue all the sort of thousands of certificates that are already out there. So we were very conscious of that. And the way that worked for the helicopter A test was, yes, you could use flybarless, but it's got to only be set to, fulfill the role that the flybar did. So if it was starting to go to self-leveling or anything like that, it was outside the remit of the test.
Yeah, because then I guess it's a thing where it's then more about almost sort of like pilots do checklist and decision making skills more than it is direct contact piloting skills.
Yeah, it's become for a lot of these, in my view, a package thing now. It's pilot electronics and aircraft, whereas for years and years it's been pilot and aircraft. I mean, there's always been, and you're always going to have slightly grey areas. I mean, you could go back 10, 15 years and start talking about exponential and things like that, making it easier. You could argue, for example, for fixed wing, an aircraft with a lot more dihedral is a lot more stable than one without. And it's a matter of finding sort of a happy balance where you've got enough achievement there. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an achievement scheme.
Well, I mean, to reference the exponential quote there, I think the biggest problem we have, or the challenge we face, is that we're on an exponential curve from a technology stance in terms of the autonomy, in terms of you know, more things being easier and easier for the, you know, let's say pilot. I mean, the fact of the matter is you can get people with nearly no experience able to get something to fly. And it will hold its position and it will keep itself level to the point where you're just pushing buttons on a smartphone even.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is a real challenge moving forward, and I guess catch up on that has got to be fairly high on the agenda.
No, I think keeping up with technology, you're almost always on a losing game on that. All you can do is try to keep up. But you don't know what the next technological advancement is until it happens. And then you've got to go through a process of evaluating how you build that into things like achievement scheme testing.
Thank you, Romus King.
So I think it's clear that certainly for the A and B certificates, it is about pilot achievement. It always has been. I can't see things moving away from that. But we have recognised, I think, the extra technologies by introducing the basic proficiency certificates, which allow people to come along, take a test if they want. I mean, they're all, from our point of view, always voluntary, always will be. There's no effect on insurance at all on these things. You're insured whether you've got them or not, from our point of view. But one thing I think what the achievement scheme has done over the years has improved safety standards. You know, in my view, and I've seen it many, many times, people that aim for the certificates, in general, not always, because there's always exceptions, tend to be safe flight.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think it's no bad thing, because I mean, for me, I've been flying model stuff, and probably I think it was around 1989 I started flying fixed wing, and then, you know, the 5 years later I started going on to flying helicopters, and helicopters is my main background, and they're one of those things where you have to build them yourselves. They're incredibly expensive to crash, because back then there weren't simulators or anything to help you out. Everything was mechanical fly bars, and you had to know that thing inside out, and checklists were a big part of you know, before you even fly the thing, you had to check everything, because there's so many single points of failure on a helicopter. And it's something that's instilled in me. When I build a multi-rotor, I fly multi-rotor, I always go through checking prop directions, making sure everything is mechanically sound, no dry solder joints. I'll always go through a mental checklist in my head. And I think encouraging people towards that kind of thing is never a bad thing anyway. So it doesn't surprise me at all that you've got statistics to back that up.
And it, of course, carries weight with the CAA. I mean, the very fact that we'll accept achievement scheme certificates for people going for the PFCO, you know, shows that they hold it in some standing. And, you know, we'll probably be talking about regulation later. So we, you know, on the regregistration side of things, competent.
Sure. Yeah, Andy, carry on. Sorry, I'm sure you've got
before we jump into that. Because Clive FPV asked, how do you go about starting a club? So with the BMFA.
Right. Okay. Well, with the BMFA, it's very straightforward. You tell us you want to be a club. We'll send you some two forms to fill in. You fill them in, you send them back. You're a club from our point of view.
And For anyone else who hasn't got a club near them, what's the benefit of starting a club with the BMFA rather than just forming a Facebook group or having a casual meetup?
Yeah, for an affiliated club, there are quite a lot of extra benefits that people tend not to think about. First of all, there's decades of experience and advice and build. But the big thing, I think, with membership of any association, especially what we do, the primary thing people join is insurance. You know, so as an affiliated club, there are a lot of extra insurances that are fairly essential for clubs that you tend not to think about. Things like cover for your landowner, for example. We are, you know, thankfully not as litigious as they are in the States, but we're getting, you know, heading that way. And what we've found, and more, is that people will now make claims against as many people as possible. And so they may make a claim against a landowner, for example, or they could make a claim against whoever the organisers are. I know quite often it's a dirty word, this committee. But if you're on a committee of a club or you're one of the chief organisers, it is possible somebody could make a claim against you for the actions of another member of the club on the basis that you've perhaps enabled their actions. Yeah. So this is where the extra insurances come in.
Yeah.
So the landowners are covered. You know, if it's an affiliated club, landowners are covered, whether that's MOD, councils. You've then got it's directors and officers cover, which in effect covers all the members of the committee. So if somebody does make a claim against you, you know, the insurance is there and you're covered. There's other, you know, we have a club equipment insurance, and that's all part of the benefits of affiliation. So you've got up to £10,000 worth of equipment covered. So if your ride-on lawnmower gets stolen, that's all covered.
And then the other thing with forming a new club that a lot of people have been asking about, because this also relates to a misunderstanding I had of how clubs worked with the BMFA. That's been long-standing in my head was about having a site, because it's sort of been passed down to me, sort of word of mouth, that it was necessary to have a permanent site to become a BMFA club. But by the sounds of it, that's not the case.
That's not the case at all. No, you can have. We've got many clubs actually that have multiple sites, or they don't have their own fixed sites. Classic being slot soaring clubs. But we have more and more multi-rotor drone racing clubs that have come on over the past couple of years, and they've got, you know, they find a site, you know, for the event and do it that way. Which is another thing I forgot to mention, of course, is the event insurance. You know, if you're an affiliated club and you're running an event, the insurance is in place for you. You know, so they're very, you know, benefits that are worthwhile.
And what about groups of people that are looking for a permanent site? Can you, because you were talking earlier about helping with mediation, can you help, like, people going up to the local council and saying, can we have a...
We certainly can. You know, we can contact councils, you know, on behalf of people looking for sites. We do that quite regularly. We work, you know, and we liaise quite often with councils. One of the things that we do whenever a council decides they want to introduce new bylaws, they have to run it by us, which is helpful. I mean, we can't always prevent, you know, councils introducing them. But
so topical question then, Coventry.
Yes. Well, we are. Well, they've had a meeting today, haven't they? We have been in correspondence with them based on news that came out last week. How it will end up, it's too soon to say. But a similar thing happened probably 2 years ago in Bristol, you may recall, where they decided they were going to restrict all RC flying to one site in Bristol, Engrove Park. They ran this by us, and while we couldn't get them to accept RC flying of all forms, which includes drones, at all open spaces in Bristol, we did manage to persuade them into having 2 further areas. And that was, you know, well, I went down, met a few people from the council. We looked around the sites, and generally they'll be cooperative, you know. And he did say that if we became aware of further sites in the future that were suitable, they would consider adding them to the list of allowable places. And I think it's one of the things that we all need to do is accept that some places we just shouldn't be flying in. Some places aren't suitable, and yet others are.
So, Andy, in terms of the membership, is it still steadily growing? Because what you mentioned social media earlier, and one of the things I guess that was traditional is that if you want to get into flying, you might go to a model shop, and you might then go to a club site and join a club and learn to fly that way. And nowadays, it seems like people will see a video on YouTube and they say, "Oh, I like the idea of that," and they'll find a website and they'll buy it, and they'll go out somewhere and they'll start flying. They might hook up with Facebook things, and it kind of seems like in some way that the sort of the club experience is sort of missing there. How are you getting those new flyers into the clubs as well?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you where I am finding clubs are finding these people is through accepting drone racing. To be honest, I think especially the younger end, those clubs that have embraced that are really noticing an increase in members, and a lot will move over to, shall we say, the more traditional, activities that takes place at the playing club.
Well, you mean like wearing socks with sandals?
Absolutely, yeah, and shorts, and and drinking tea, not flying and talking a lot. Yeah.
I mean, Tony joined because at the age of 378 AD, they considered him to be young as well. So.
We were all young ones.
Curry's question actually leads quite nicely into a question from Richard Warwick. So kind of for people who are, not near a club or just, fancy going around flying in, sort of the remote spaces and sort of they're just country members. What's the big incentive there for to be a BMFA member?
The biggest incentive, I suppose, is the best insurance package available for anybody flying RC in all its forms. It's proven, it's bespoke package. The levels of cover are better than you can get elsewhere. Not the cheapest, but the best very rarely is.
And then following on from that, there was quite a few people who were picking up on after the the Gatwick event and the how a certain couple were treated after that. What is there any coverage in terms of legal representation or any help that way?
Well, the big problem we have is none of us have actually got much information to go on, do we? We don't know what the police came up with, and this is the biggest problem about the whole incident. But all we can talk about is basically what we see through the media, which, as we know, isn't always particularly accurate.
So the BMFA haven't been at all consulted or spoken to about this incident that you know of?
We've been in touch with it's the Surrey police down there, isn't it? We've been spoken to them. We've actually contacted a lot of the clubs in the area. The difficulty is nobody knows what happened there. It's entertaining reading all the conspiracy theories out there.
Yeah, I mean we've covered the topic here several times over several shows, and I guess our consensus. Yes, thank you, Tony. Our biggest consensus is really the fact that 300 odd press down there stalking Gatwick for 3 days straight with their massive lenses and God knows what else. Not a single picture. It's just all a little strange. But as you say, media hysteria is probably the best summary for now.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you've also got to be somewhat realistic as well. The Gatwick's a huge area. A multi-rotor can be quite small. Unless you happen to be looking at it, if it's a mile and a half away, you're not going to see it no matter what lens you've got on. All the people in the airport weren't in a position where they were going to be able to see anything anyway.
Sure, but I think we had what that was described as 93 credible sightings.
Yes.
Which you think one of those would have said, "Blimmin' heck, I must get a photo of that to show to people.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. You know, how much, you know, depends what you call a credible title.
Well, this is what the police termed it out, so it could be anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is my own personal feeling, so don't take this as in any way official. I suspect initially there was some drone activity around that. And then, of course, once that gets reported, you know, your next door neighbour's dog walking past with a flashing collar becomes a drone, and you know that's how these things go. You know, to the point, and we even had it where it looks like the police drones have been reported as unauthorised drone act. So this is, you know, what you're up against.
That's what happened, isn't it? The police were flying drones around, and then everyone starts reporting drones, and then I guess there's a communication issue. What I found interesting about the whole thing is that with Heathrow, they actually had video of it, yet they only closed Heathrow for an hour, but they closed Gatwick for what was it, 2 days?
It was 36 hours or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
It seems a bit sus. And then I'm not like into conspiracy theories myself at all, but Gatwick changed hands like a day later, didn't it? You know,
and they were supposed to have a strike as well.
Yeah, they were going to have a strike on the 21st. It was in the news in November,
and they were hacked.
Anyway, that noise.
I mean, primarily, I was amazed we had enough tinfoil left to do our turkeys at Christmas.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Wynn's question was more along the lines of, because we've got the registration coming in October, November, and then we're kind of a bit worried that, you know, the next time there's a Gatwick or Heathrow event, they're just going to look down the list and go, let's have a go at these people.
Or let's speed up the process, because I mean, it's not meant to be happening until November next year, and like all I'm seeing in the news is drone regulations needs to be sped up. It needs to be sorted now, sort of thing. So has the BMFA had any sort of input into that?
Into the drone bill, which I think has had its first reading. Yes, we're actually very fortunate that our chief exec Dave, who was hoping to be with us tonight but can't, but we can organise another session, is very well respected where it matters, and there is an all-party parliamentary group for general aviation, which has a subcommittee for the unmanned aircraft, and Dave has been invited to sit on that subcommittee. And these are the people that are going to be dealing with the drone bill as it is. You know, we're right in the heart of it. You know, with Dave, we're very fortunate. I know he's my boss, and I'm going to, you know, he's probably not listening because he's got a family to run. But he's very modest. But I think we're very fortunate.
What I thought was interesting is I don't know if you saw it, was the CAA talk at the NEC drone show.
Yes, I saw it. Yeah.
Well, it went on for like half an hour, and I think I talked about it last week or the week before. You can go and watch it, and you know, because people, when people hear registration and you know, tests and things like that, sounds very scary. What they were actually saying is, we want to make it as easy as possible, and it's literally just probably. Well, the thing is though, this was like a week before the Gatwick incident, so I don't know if it's gonna have changed. But what they were saying basically is that they're not really they're not targeting hobbyists. What they want to do is have this online test, but they want it to be a bit like the test that DJI gives you on your phone before it'll let you fly a DJI model, because you know they want like young people who are like 16 that will actually do the test, because you know, if you're a younger person, you know, then and you see like you've got to answer 500 questions, no, they're just not gonna do it.
No, so I think I went to the question and answer session at the drone show that they did on the Sunday. I think it upset him slightly by pointing out that it doesn't matter what regulations they introduce, those that are, you know, determined not to follow them aren't going to follow them. And the incidents we've had so far, for example, at Gatwick, they're already unlawful with the current regulation. So it's not regulation that's the problem. This has been the BMFA position all along. It's the enforcement that's the problem.
Thank you, Art Faulkner. Thank you, Clive FPV. Tony's lighting 2 up for you guys.
Cheers, guys.
Sorry, Andy.
That's all right. It's okay. So that's a problem that we've got. We know what politicians are like. They like to be seen to be doing something, even if they aren't doing anything. And this is the response that they're coming up with. The efforts of the BMFA and any of the, I think we just answered that one that's popped up on my screen, has to be minimising impact on as many people as possible. And that's where the efforts have to be aimed. Because whether we like it or not, these changes are coming in. And, you know, we're going to be working very hard to minimise the effect of them. Because at the end of the day, criminals are going to take part in criminal activity, not bothered about the fact it's already unlawful. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it to start off with.
So we were kind of.
That's kind of interesting that you take that point of view as being the BMFA, because you know people have the, and I think maybe the issue is that you don't have the online presence to get that message out there. Because a lot of people's opinion, from what I've heard, is that the BMFA don't care about any of this, and clearly you do. And
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues we've had for quite a while is that we're too busy getting on with it. If you pardon the phrase, to blow our own trumpet, and perhaps we need to. And certainly using the sort of social media and the more modern methods communication is something we have been working on and we're making strides with. I'm here tonight, despite the fact I can't get my camera working. Apologies, everybody. You know, it is testament to that. But yeah, I do think we do need to shout a bit more about the sort of achievements and activities that we get up to. So we are working on it.
Yeah. So what about? Has there been any backlash from members who, for years and years, have taken the A, the B test for whichever RC model that they've got, and now these regulations are coming in, and it's like, no, the BMFA already have a system in place for you know, proficiency in flying. Why should I be made to take another test? Have you had a lot of like, you know, legacy members? Because I know that BMFA has been around a long. I've been a member a long time. Yeah. You know, does the BMFA plan to sort of have a system where it sort of we can bypass this whole you know, registration system, and really their target is people that are just walking into Curry's or Dixon's, buying a Phantom 4 and then flying it at Gatwick? I think that's the problem, isn't it? It's not people you know, tuning into this who are hobbyists who look out for each other, who are, you know, that they do this as safe as possible. You know, so is there anything happening there, or is there nothing that you can do?
There are a lot of efforts on that. One of the things going forward that we're looking at is, and this isn't just the BMFA, you know, it's LMA, FPV, UKSA. One of the things we are working going forward is having the fact that you are a member of the recognised associations count for it. You know, and also, you know, if people have got and already proved the competency, and to be fair, anybody who's passed an achievement, the level of competence proved is way beyond anything they're going to ask at an online multiple choice question.
You don't even know. At least with your competency test, you know that you've got the correct person stood in front of you. Like this online test, unless they're going to do it like how you do your a theory test for your driving, where you prove that you are who you say you are, anyone could fill that in for you.
Absolutely. I mean, how they're actually going to implement all this is, if you found the pun, still very much up in the air, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, like I could, you know, essentially, you know, I could get a monkey to do Tony's test, and they wouldn't know.
No, I mean, this is it. How they're going to do all this, I have no idea. I don't think they know yet.
Yeah, all of a sudden, November seems like it actually might be too close. Just a quick question while we've have a quick chance. And Andrea Haku asked the question: what will happen to BMFA clubs that will now be within the range of 5 miles from an airport?
It's highly likely that they will carry on as they always have done. There are already clubs operating within 1 kilometre distance, and they've operated with the mission of air traffic control for years and years and years. We envisage that those clubs operating within the 5 kilometres now they've got the proven track record of not being a problem. You know, it's almost certain that exemptions will be issued for them.
Yeah, it's like Popham's on the same site, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and there's no problems there. So, yeah,
I mean, I've spoken to 2 or 3 clubs close to, you know, within 5 kilometres from Gatwick just this past day or so. I mean, obviously people are concerned about this. We don't believe it will prove an issue for established clubs, which of course aren't the targets of the regulation. And I think you know, that those producing the regulation are aware of that as well.
Yeah, they're not the targets. Sadly, they are the people who sort of the general public turn to and say you are the problem. Because I mean, for me, it's the way that the media handles all of this. It's like Sal's newspapers for them, doesn't it? When
it is
all this drone stuff.
It's very much how they operate the media, and it's not just media. You know, it's TV, radio, and everything, isn't it? Everybody wants to sensationalize.
I mean, the point is, I think the problem is right now. Our first point of contact to these incidents is the police. So, I mean, it's very clear to a lot of us that the police are, you know, there's a case of just not being educated or misinformed, and there's a lot of information missing. And you know, the police, by their own right, in individual interviews, police have said we don't really have a clue about what we're dealing with here, and it's becoming a thing very fast. What are there any steps that the BMFA are taking in terms of educating the police, or are they accepting to you working with them on this?
We're regularly in touch with various police forces. You know, they will either contact us for advice. You know, we contact them when we realise, you know, to say we've been speaking to Surrey Police quite a lot, as you can imagine, this past few weeks, and it's an ongoing thing. I think at the moment the difficulty is it's difficult to educate, shall we say, the enforcers or the police on how this is all going to be affected, because we don't know how it's all going to fall into place yet.
It's so grey right now, isn't it?
It is. It's all quite nebulous at the moment.
Yeah.
Andrew, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to do a brief recap of my understanding of all the press releases and everything that's been going out over the past week or so about the regulation. And basically, as far as I can see, nothing has changed since the ANO amendment last July, which is saying that registration is coming in November, that it's going to be released, like the system is going to be up and running by October. But it's going to be required from November for any model over 250 grams. All rules apply to even under 250 grams. It applies to everything. which is the usual kind of keep away from people, don't fly over towns, that kind of thing. The suggestion from the CAAs, so the response to the consultation, that so everyone responded to the consultation. Those are kind of condensed down into some recommendations for the government to consider when they're writing the drone bill later on this year. And that's basically, there's not enough time to deal with fins at the moment. Forget about that for the moment. So that's the flight notification system, whatever it's called. So we're not going to have to do that. Registration's already been written in, so that's happening. And then the only other thing was so there's the recommendation to change the distances from the airports. As far as I can tell, that's still not written in anywhere, and that's just still a recommendation.
I think that's a proposal, yeah.
Yeah, and then as same with the fixed penalty notices. So this would be police powers to be able to fine people on the spot a certain amount of money for doing something wrong, and that's still a proposal. It's not detailed, it's not confirmed or anything. It's still a proposal. And there was one other thing I thought of, which was the search and seize and all that kind of police powers, which basically exist anyway, and
exactly,
there's no, it's already happened. It's been used. People who were chasing or flying a phantom near a police helicopter sometime last year, I think it was, they've already been, they've had their house searched and the drone seized and the footage to prove that they were doing it, and so they've been prosecuted. And they're prosecuted the grand sum of £200. Ridiculous.
It is, isn't it?
But yeah,
it's not even the cost of the aviation fuel for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
I think sensible enforcement of the current regulations that have worked for years and years and years would be all that's required.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with all the hysteria, that's we're beyond that now.
But yeah, on the subject of the hysteria, Fraser Steen, I think this is the last question that I've got from the patrons, so we're doing pretty well.
Okay.
He was saying, with all the media hysteria that's been going, all the anti-drone, have the BMFA got any plans to sort of counteract that in the media? So we were saying, that you're working a lot with the legislation and those that sort of side of things. And you've said that you need to improve on communication with the community to show that you're doing that. But then what about this other whole realm of communication with the general public and kind of saying...
Well, this communication, I suppose, through the media is probably the most challenging aspect. They are primarily spend the time trying to catch people out. An example of that was, you probably recall, it's probably a couple of years ago now, when allegedly a drone strike on a 747 coming into Heathrow. You probably all remember it and the hoo-ha at the time. I think between us, myself, Dave and Manny probably did half a dozen radio interviews that week. I did one on one particular national radio station, which I must have, it wasn't my favourite experience. But generally, you get sort of a 10-minute chat with the researcher beforehand who was going through questions. Well, really, where do you go for training, insurance, things like that. So I was actually expecting a nice, productive interview. And just like you did when you were going live there, you said, right, I'm handing you through to the studio now. We're about to go live. Please don't swear, he said. And then the presenter, first question was, is this a disaster waiting to happen? And then she spent basically 5 minutes trying to get me to say that was the case, not listening to what I wanted to say. Got to the point where I got rather frustrated with her, broke her off mid-question, and said to her, I says, at this point, we have no confirmed incident of a drone hitting aircraft, none whatsoever. So her response was, well, there's all these reports. What are they all? UFOs. My response being, well, actually, they're flying objects as yet unidentified. UFO is definitely what they are. It's just a new way of spelling UFO. It seems to be DRONE.
It's interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? Because there before drones existed, there were UFO sightings, and now UFO sightings seem to be just called drone sightings, don't they?
Clearly, we're not interesting enough to all these aliens anymore. They're not.
Yeah, they definitely need to step their game up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny thing, isn't it? It's I don't know if many people know what else costs the aviation industry about commercial aviation industry about $1.2 billion a year, and that's birds.
Yeah,
you know, there's plenty of other things,
but they never get a mention. The public are never scared, but what they don't realize is that at airports is they let off fireworks to scare birds away.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things. There's fireworks, there's tannoys as well, doing I think predatory bird noises. There's guys that walk around with those scaring sound guns and all kinds of stuff.
So why aren't the media saying, oh, you know, there are these other dangers? It seems to be, and you know, I've made a video about this. It's going to be in my next video, and this I was like looking at all of this media stuff, and I thought to myself, do you know, there are no positive drone news stories. The news is, and it's kind of like a Bill Hicks quote, really. You know, there's no, where are all the news stories about, you know, oh, a group of people met today and they found a connection that they couldn't find anywhere else, and you know, it helped to relieve their anxieties, maybe depression, maybe mental health, and they did it safely, and you know, and that is the main sort of concern, is safety for the public when we all fly together. If we see someone walking a dog, as you know, I've been in a club before, and it was a closed off place, yet people still would just walk straight across the runway that we had cut out. You know, and so people don't know the positive side of it, and I guess the media, you know, that's not interesting, is it, to them? Oh, it's helping a lot of people. The drone
it's not just positive drone stories, is it? It's positive stories on anything. They just
it doesn't sell papers, does it? Yeah, you're absolutely right. But you know, ironically, of course, just about every probably a program every 30 seconds that you're watching on TV is shot with aerial footage from a drone. Just about all the media that we see, the footage from them, they'll all be, you know, using drones themselves. But it's the buzzword, it's the thing to hate on, and it's getting all the clicks. So, and it's a little sad to see, as has been mentioned in the chat already, that the BBC are kind of really clickbaiting a lot of that, shall I say. But
well, between you, me, and the gatepost, don't tell anybody. But it was the BBC radio station I was on when they were trying to.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the BBC is, you know, it's publicly funded. It's meant to have no agenda, but that's an agenda.
I think a balanced journalism is the term that was supposed to be used.
It's something that's not particularly there anymore, is it? Unfortunately.
Yeah,
I blame the advent of 24-hour news. They can't have journalism in news now. They just have to, like, something's happened. Let's get someone's opinion. Let's read out some Twitter posts.
Oh, yeah.
On interviews with weird people.
That is a really, really good point. There isn't enough news for the amount of news production, shall we say. So that's where things get sort of carried away, isn't it? And then dragging up non-news to throw at it.
Yeah.
You know, and there just isn't enough stuff happening to warrant the amount of news that we get.
Yeah, that News 24 channel was brilliant because I watched it, and every 10 minutes Tony was on it for an entire day because they just loop and now the update on at Gatwick, and then the video of Tony standing on a van and every 10 minutes because
if you had an honest News 24, it was going to be there's not been any news for the past 10 minutes. Here's some news from earlier, and that's going to be the bulk of the news for the day, isn't it?
That's what it was. Yeah.
I mean, I think the important thing about all of this is, when you see a story, you actually have to go back to the original source and see what it was. Because, I mean, there's all this kind of drone hysteria hyping up the risk of drones and everything. But I think it works the other way as well. Because I went back and looked through, I can't believe I'm defending Chris Grayling here because, but if you go back to his original statement that was, being reported in the press everywhere as being, they're coming hard down on drones and giving police powers and everything. An actual quote here from him was, "We can pass new laws until the cows come home, but that does not stop people breaking them, and the law is as tough as is necessary to punish the perpetrators of an attack such as this."
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most difficult thing as well to catch someone. I mean, the thing that you are seeing that is doing maybe the illegal thing is, the person could be miles away doing it, and and it's finding where that signal's coming from, and all. It's something that can't really be policed, can it?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, it'd have to be a technological solution to it.
Yeah, what, like maybe just like a block or at airports that just
Well, this was the other thing that Dom Robinson alluded to in his interview, radio interview recently, which was that a lot of this drone technology that we're paying for, by the way, all this military technology and stuff that's coming in doesn't work, and it's not going to work, and it just costs hideous amounts of cash. And that's an issue.
Why doesn't it work? Surely, if you just like block, or is there laws against doing that? Like, can't
Well, for one thing, you may not have a radio signal doing it.
Yeah,
and even if you lost GPS, the thing could fly onwards on a
GPS waypoint path, and it's just doing a circuit until a battery or whatever. It's and then at which point it's like, well, what kind of technology do they have to shoot electronic things down out the sky? And then it's well, there's a lot of electronic things in the sky that don't need to be shot out, and it's all a bit complicated.
Yeah,
it's not a straightforward one. I have to say, I didn't think the idea of. I know a couple of people have asked. This is for you, Win. The drone hit squad, on the basis that. We then suddenly started getting lots of reports of drones when the police were flying around, putting a load of other guys there with drones flying around. All that's going to do is generate hundreds more drone reports. So I don't think that was ever a sensible solution.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at Heathrow the other day, and there was a police helicopter hovering above looking for a drone, and immediately there's photos and videos everywhere of a strobe and a red light and a green light, and people going, "Oh, it's definitely a drone." It's like, it's definitely not. That is a helicopter if ever I saw one. But...
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't some sightings like some cranes and all sorts, and that's. I think it's well known that eyewitness reports tend to be some of the most unreliable.
They're very sensitive, but not very specific.
I think a lot of UFO reports used to be those lanterns that you could buy, which you can buy quite anywhere.
Yeah.
But
I hear they kill owls and stuff like that. Tony's well against them.
I'm dead against them as well. Yeah.
There was I even thought because there's a cluster of UFOs there because they move so slowly, especially when they're at night, when it's when the winds come. And I thought, oh my God, the UFOs are real. And then I got closer to them, and it was just a bunch of people letting a load of them off, like
You've got to remember that UFOs are real. There's just something flying around that you haven't identified.
Well,
you don't necessarily have little green men on board coming down to probe you.
Oh no!
I've loads of times to probe Tony's bumhole, but keeps refusing.
I've got a BMFA I've got because I
Oh
know
yeah, Andy does have. Yeah.
I know we're coming close to the hour, but I've got a BMFA specific question, Andy, if that's okay, because we ran into sort of a issue. When I say we, I go to a indoor flying club, and it's not registered as a club. It's just a group of guys that know like I think the headmaster of a school, and they let us use the sports hall for a couple of hours. And the rule is that you have to have a BMFA membership, whether that's a club membership or an individual membership. And all of us guys, when we went to the NEC, we re-registered our BMFA insurance, but nothing came through the post. Whereas last year you got a little card, and for FPVers, by the way, the little card, the little card that you get is a godsend, because this last couple of years, it's funny with all of these the media.
It's not your ear holes. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. All of this stuff in the media. This last two years. Sorry. Well, actually, it's mainly been last year, should I say, because we've just started the new year. I've had people come up to me and say, "What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that." And I can just get out of my wallets and get my BMFA card and go, yes, I can, sort of thing. And even though it doesn't technically like mean anything, if you show someone some paperwork, they'll just, even because they know nothing about it, they'll go off. This year I didn't receive that. Is that because we did it at the show?
No, it's because you received it electronically. By the time you got up from the table, because it was me that was doing this, your email had arrived with your documents attached.
Yeah, that's what the password reset was for. They moved us over to the new system.
Yeah, the new system is now, as soon as you renew now or join, you get an email straight away with an attachment, which is your membership document. I mean, I've got mine on my phone. I'll show you on the screen, but you know, so, and of course you can print it off, carry it around with you as often as you like.
The problem is when you print off something from a printer, anyone could. It doesn't. It was like laminated. It looked official, and I'll tell you the problem that we had, right, is because it's not a club. What you're required to do is to show your BMFA membership once a year. And what happened was, because the cards didn't come through, and a lot of the members are, let's say, older members that don't have email. They didn't have the they didn't have anything, and they actually couldn't fly.
Well, I mean, that's not a problem either, because all they need to do is a quick call to the office and we'll send them a printed copy out.
Yeah. The thing is, I suppose it was just like, I think the card thing was a good thing, is what I'm getting at. But it probably costs money, and that's why it's gone electronic. But I think for
£25,000 plus every year.
Wow.
But in this specific case, though, there's the new membership portal thing that gives a load more information for people managing clubs, right? So
absolutely, yeah. I've been that's been the sort of taking up the bulk of my time for the past 6 months. It's been dealing with that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. Going back 8-9 years ago, before I was working for the BMFA, while I was still involved, I was the membership secretary at 2 clubs up in Yorkshire. Between the 2 clubs, we had 300 plus members. I would have killed for this new system. I really would. You know,
Oh yeah, no, it's not. It's not the system. It was just. I think
I understand your point. I do.
Yeah.
They like their membership cards chiseled into stone.
Oh yeah, delivered by a unicorn, and you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we get, you know, told that we need to get into the 21st century. This is one of the areas where we have done. I think the new system is fantastic. I put it this way: at the drone show, the number of people that were chuffed to bits that the phone pinged with their email with the membership documents before they got out of the chair where I was. You know, they were. It was, you know, the overriding opinion was, "Wow, that was quick." You know, and we will provide printed versions for those that want them. Realistically, most of them sit in a drawer and never get used.
Yeah, so you can request one. Do you have
Absolutely.
Do you have to pay for it?
No. If they just contact the office, say, "Can you send me a printed one?" They will do.
And will it be the printed one that you got?
No, it's not. It's just going to be, you know, printed off, but probably on a heavier duty card. One of the things we are looking at going forward for next year is perhaps another option for a sort of plastic printed card. We're still weighing those options up.
Yeah, because I mean they were very durable as well because they were kind of like laminated. I just found them useful, you know, like I say, just even though it technically didn't mean anything when people start seeing paperwork. But if you, I mean, for me it wasn't a problem. This question really is for the people who didn't have email and stuff like that. I had my phone with me, so I went to my email and went, "There's my number." It's the number that they wanted.
The best thing to do is affiliate as a club, and then if you're the club administrator, you can go along and you can show all the cards for all your members to the people that need to see it.
So you're telling us we need to open our own Let's Drone Out club?
Yeah, go for it. Why not?
Yeah, do it, man. Let's do it.
Because it might push Frank over the edge.
Well, is that a good thing then?
No.
So, Andy, I had a quick question again about the registration thing. And I know details are vague at the moment, but I ran a quick poll on YouTube just to understand what people were feeling about would they register and wouldn't. And I was wondering what your membership was generally feeling, because I was getting about a third of people saying under no circumstances will I register. People were sort of comparing it to sort of voluntarily put yourself on the sex offenders register. They were that worried that police were just going to target them as a...
Yeah, it's just going to be a police Christmas list. Yeah. Oh, look, something happened near Gatwick, and they'll just work their way down the list.
Yeah.
Do you get a feeling from your members at this point about... Are they going to do it? Are they against it?
Feel that, well, I think most members are responsible people, without a doubt, and they will do what they have to do to comply and be lawful. I think most of them think, well, actually, we're already registered. We're a member. I mean, the primary purpose, I think, for registration is to educate, I believe, and they want to be able to contact people to educate them. Because that, at the end of the day,
is educate here the word for search your house and raid you and take all your drones away?
I think warrants are still required. If you read the latest,
they are required. I do get worried about the language behind that, which is the reasonable suspicion that drone and something like that. I mean, it's a little bit subjective, isn't it? I mean.
It is, but I'm not entirely sure it's any different to what's there now, is it?
No. The powers are staying the same. They've just basically replicated it to give themselves a drone-specific thing, but it's still... When people put themselves on a list and say, okay, yeah, I own lots of stuff, then it does... I can see where their worry comes from, because we've got no leads. What should we do? Well, we've got a list of people that own drones. We should talk to all those guys. Surely it's going to make sense in that point of view, isn't it?
The way these things tend to go, those that are registered are almost certainly not the ones that tells in trouble. So they've probably got a list of people.
They're trying to hide in plain sight.
Doing something.
I think it's probably there is a level of speculation. I mean, there's speculation in so much of this, as we've talked about, because of the amount of grey area. But it's something we can't entirely speculate on until those powers are necessarily abused. If we're in a position where at some point down the road they do exactly that and they start, you know, calling up people on the list, then I think we've got something to challenge there. But as we've said, there's just so much up in the air at the minute. One thing I was wondering, do we know if the actual the people that were arrested over this Gatwick incident, do we know if that guy who was a model flyer, and it turns out it was a helicopter I think he owned that they confiscated, do we know if he was a BMFA member or not?
I can phone him if you want.
Yeah, you'll phone him and ask. I think the biggest problem with that was the media releasing information that they shouldn't have been releasing.
Absolutely.
Fall into the same trap. So, you know, I've spent the first 3 months of 2018 dealing with GDPR, general data protection, so I'm fairly careful what I'm going to say. Not answer that one.
Yeah, the news don't seem to cover that at all. Oh, these 2 people have had their Christmas ruined. It was like 2 days before Christmas. All they carried on talking about was drones and Gatwick, and it's like, no, you need to. Yeah, that should be the news.
The media coverage was atrocious, wasn't it?
Yeah,
especially when it was specifically clarified in the Leveson inquiry that it is not legal or appropriate for the media to do that, publish people's details of someone that's been arrested and not charged, unless the police have deemed it important and released that information, which they didn't.
No, exactly. I mean, this was, you know, all the way through that, it was the press, I think, there was at fault. I mean, I don't know what information the police had or what they released or what they didn't. I don't think any of us do.
But then why, if the boss and the ex-wife both were decent alibis, why did they keep them for 36 hours?
Well, I have no idea, because I don't know what they have. This is the problem.
It's the police, isn't it? Yeah.
You've seen 24 hours in police custody. As soon as they get a suspect, it's like, ignore all the investigations. How can we try and make the evidence fit our suspect now?
Yeah. Tony lives near Gatwick, lives alone,
seen up on a van looking dodgy.
Yeah.
FPV gear, complaining about things, saying it hasn't been seen a policeman. But moving away from speculation just for a second and moving on to just because one thing that I think Wynne really wanted to know was if someone did suffer that kind of same sort of scenario where it's all gone a bit pear-shaped and they're looking down the end of all this sort of trouble, even though they've, you know, not done anything, but in this case, would it be worth contacting the BMFA? Are you going to be able to do anything to help, or?
It's hard to say. I suppose each individual situation would be different. Certainly, we would do all we could to assist based on whatever information we have. You know, as always in these things, it's a lack of information, isn't it?
Because I've heard before that you've got, you know, because of your long-standing history, you know the sorts of people that would be helpful in this situation, who know the law inside and out from a model aircraft perspective, and might be able to help. But
yeah, I mean, when it comes to sort of model aircraft regulation, certainly we do. You know, the difficulty would be, I suppose, once you're involved in, shall we say, criminal activities, you just have a lack of information to work on. You know, and it's clear this couple, yes, they had the Christmas spoil. They've been cleared. In some respects, from the police side of things, the system appears to have worked, despite, yes, the intrusion and the issues were purely a media thing in my view. The way these things work, if the police have some evidence, they then, you know, make arrests. They then continue their investigation to try and gather further evidence. Bearing in mind, evidence isn't proof. You know, and they have to put together enough evidence to warrant pressing charges, which clearly, once they investigated thoroughly, there wasn't. Therefore, they were released. In some respects, that's the system working. which is easy to say for somebody who wasn't involved and wasn't the person that was arrested, because I dread to think how it was for them. That I suspect, it was an absolute nightmare. What we have to be thankful for is that the system did actually work and they were completely cleared. The people that should be castigated have to be the press on this one. And the difficulty we have, all we can do is speculate, because we've no idea what information the police were working on, and it makes it very, very difficult. All you can do, is feel for this couple, isn't it? And hate the press.
So in terms of just back to that topic of online presence, and I completely understand you saying your kind of general stance of the BMFA is we're kind of too busy getting on with it to really have that as too much of a priority. I mean, if there are people who are looking to hear the latest from the BMFA on on topical things, on things like multirotors, obviously there's the website. Is there other things that are worth following? Is there Twitter a good place to find out what the thoughts of the BMFA are on certain things, or where
we're certainly not active on Twitter. We are active on Facebook. We have our Facebook page, not to be confused with the unofficial Facebook. Which
a bit there, Andy. Say again.
Yeah, we have our Facebook page, which is our sort of official Facebook communication. We have a couple of pages, a couple of groups. The biggest group that's entitled BMFA on Facebook isn't actually anything to do with the BMFA, which is slightly frustrating, and that does involve me telling people quite regularly this isn't the view of the BMFA, it's not a BMFA page in any way, shape, or form. So we are active on Facebook. We are getting a little bit more involved with Instagram. But as I say, at the end of the day, we've got a fairly small number of employees who are very, very busy. We all do a lot more hours than we're paid to do. Thankfully, those of us that are classed, I suppose, as senior staff are passionate model aircraft flyers. So we know that the work we do not just benefits all the members, it benefits us. So we do put a lot of time in. It's having the extra time to do, it's almost a full-time job, or, these days with the speed of media and the speed of news getting out there, or shall we say, the speed of lack of news. Whenever there has been anything worthy of posting or reporting, a news article goes on the website. There was one put on today by the chief exec specifically around the consultation. What we don't do, and I think we are still correct in this sort of process, if you like, is rush information out. We don't, it's not a good thing to do. You see a lot of it rushing, people rushing information out, which turns out to be incorrect or knee-jerk, and we don't think we should be doing that, so we don't. What goes out is considered and very, very accurate, because it needs to be. One thing I have learned, it doesn't matter what you write down. You can think you're writing it in English, but if you've got 36,000 people reading it, you can pretty much just got going to be about 30,000 different takes on what you've written down.
I think we can all relate to that. Having YouTube channels and people comments and things. Yeah, people take things in completely different ways when your intention was something else.
Yeah, I think it's a modern phenomena that we've evolved, or the human race has evolved. So we're very, very good at picking up the wrong end of a one-ended stick.
Devolved, I think, would be the way to describe it, maybe.
Yeah.
I think we've got a sparkler going. Yeah, Romanis King just donated £20. Thank you very much, Romanis. Appreciate that.
Mine.
Oh God.
The primary reason I'm not setting off fireworks is I'm still sat in the office.
Let's fight, Jack.
Apparently, these fireworks are for Jack Love the Hair, it says.
Well, thank you very much, Andy, for coming on.
Nice pleasure. It's a pleasure.
And so, yeah, so
Thanks, Roman.
as covered by NJ, and Andy's answer. So Facebook seems to be the best place to follow. So it's facebook.com/BMFA official.
You can always just email us, of course.
Yep.
It's a good way of communicating.
And hopefully we can get you back at some point, Andy. That would be great. Because as we were saying about, as we were saying about the kind of the not to jump to being too reactive thing, and people looking for answers. Every little helps, certainly. And you coming on tonight has been definitely a good thing to be able to chat about some of these topics. So yeah, much thanks.
Happy to come on again at some point in the future. And Dave was quite disappointed he couldn't make it this evening, and he's more than happy to come on again as well in the future at some point.
Will you let him know that I am very disappointed in him?
I'm sure he'll be watching the video later on. I'm expecting Mark's at 10 in the morning.
In honour, by the way, this is a personal favour. I got a friend called Sheldon who got banned for flying his foam aeroplane from the Brighton group. Can we get them to? Can we send a message via your channel to tell them to grow up?
Well, one thing I know for definite, especially in my role as club support officer, there's always at least two sides to every story.
There are
often many more.
Being in clubs over the years, there are a lot of conflicts that go on, which I imagine you have to deal with internally with clubs. That was my experience of being in a club anyway, so it may have changed. I don't know.
Well, you've got to bear in mind we've 850 plus clubs up, and I'm the only one dealing with the club issues. On top of dealing with everything else, dealing with sort of the website membership. It's a small amount of my time dealing with Fallout, which to me suggests that actually there isn't that many up and down the country. Personally, clubs are a great place to be, but not everybody fits in the club scene.
Yeah, FPV is sort of different because it's more about the cinematography. So if you, I mean, I always fly from the same spot, and even these guys give me grief about it. And I think that's so what you probably find with BMFA is, especially since park flies and stuff became more accessible, I imagine your individual membership shot through the roof compared to club membership. I
think the biggest thing that affected sort of individual membership or country membership as such was making it very, very easy for people to join direct. and what really raised the number of country members was when we first launched our initial online membership portal about 5 years ago, because people just thought, I'll just go online and do it myself. Now that the new system allows people to do that and still be associated with the club, I'm expecting the number of members to drop. Country members to drop, because it's no longer a case of if you join direct, you have to be a country member, which up until
right, I understand. Yeah, just one that I know we're going way over. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we need to set this up now.
Yeah, we need to wrap.
Extra, Andy.
How does one go about attaining like the A and the B test if they are not in a club? Are there specific events such as Western Park where people can take their A and B test and stuff like that? Especially
the achievement scheme's actually open to everybody. You don't have to be in a club. You don't even have to be a member. If you're not a member and you want to do an A and a B test, we actually extend the BMFA insurance to cover you. For the duration of the flying session you're taking your test. One of the things that we have a couple of at our site where I am now at Buckminster We have a couple of fly-ins every year where we have plenty of examiners on hand for advice that you can come along to.
Yeah.
I'm actually, pardon me, a chief examiner. So, and whenever I'm here, if somebody wants to come and take a test, they can.
Yeah, because we need to make Andy RC and one of us examiners so that it will work nicely for the Let's Drone Out club.
Yeah, I mean, once you've got yourselves organised and you're affiliated,
organised. Let's Drone Out.
Yeah, well, once you've got somebody who's passed his B test and held it for 6 months, you put him forward to be an examiner. We'll send somebody along. They'll run him through the assessment, and then you can do the test.
Okay. All right. Right. We'll do that.
Well volunteered, Andy RC.
Oh, I just wanted, because my B test is in fixed wing, so I don't know. It's just I like the whole scheme, and I think I
have to say I'm a big fan of the scheme. I always have been. I've been involved ever since I first started flying.
I mean that was the standard for clubs, is that. If you wanted to fly solo, you had to have the A test. If you wanted to fly at an event, which clubs organise, you had to have a B test. And I think that was a good way of showing proficiency. And this is why it's annoying that you can just go into Dixon's, buy a Phantom 4, and just fly it. For me, I think you should have to take a test to be able to show that you are, proficient in flying. I know a lot of these guys probably wouldn't agree, but that would solve a lot of problems. I'm not
entirely sure I agree, to be honest.
Why is that?
Because we want to be accessible as possible to everybody. I think people need to be aware of their own limitations. You're not actually correct in that most clubs ask for the A certificate to fly unsupervised. It's slightly under 50%. That want the A certificate to fly unsupervised. But certainly all clubs will have something in place because they've a duty of care to all the members, anybody in the area, to ensure that the people doing what they're doing have a certain competence.
I think things have probably changed quite a lot, because back in the day when I was in a club, the models were much more dangerous. We're talking everything was nitro, it was big, it was heavy. So maybe that's why it's not required so much anymore.
I'm not entirely sure the fact that it's big and heavy makes it any more dangerous, to be honest. The biggest claims on BMFA insurance is small models. The big thing with your sort of traditional model flying over the years, it's taken place in fairly remote locations. If something goes wrong, and it does crash, and they do, all model aircraft of one form will crash at some time or another, there's nothing around to crash into other than the ground. So generally, it's a very, very, safe. Well, as an example of how safe it is, I think it's just the cost of the BMFA insurance, really. When you consider the insurers reckon something like 5 million flights by members a year, and any year there's usually between about 25 claims a year. So that's a phenomenally small number. And that's due to, I think, the responsible attitude that model flights have taken for decades, really. And that's something that we need to sort of educate everybody on. If you act responsibly, make sure you're being lawful. It's not an issue. As soon as people start pushing the envelope, one person thinks is perfectly safe and reasonable, somebody else isn't going to agree. You've always got that. I mean, I see a lot on social media stuff. It's clearly attractive. And we're not just talking drone flyers, it's the same for model aircraft flyers as well. And what we need the community to do is to come down on them. There's, if somebody's doing something, it affects all of us. And I think going forward, I suspect that peer pressure will be the best method of preventing the irresponsible people than anything. It'll do a lot more than any regulation will do. Because a lot of what happens now with YouTube and that is about getting the likes, isn't it, and getting the views. And I think, you know, if the peer pressure suddenly says, well, hang on, should you be doing that? I think that'll have more of an effect than any regulation. My personal view, of course.
Jolly good. Right, should we call it there?
Please.
Okay, I'm very sorry, Frank. Thank you. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. You've been joined by Andrew/Frank.
Goodbye.
That whining noise that sounds like a PC fan's got a bit of dust stuck in it was Andy RC.
Do I sound that bad, really? Good evening.
It's just a northern accent, mate.
Nothing at all wrong with the northern accent.
I was gonna say, and Andy sounds much more north than me, so
I'm convinced I haven't got an accent. You lot.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yep. Andy from the BMFA.
Thanks, everyone.
No worries. NJ Tech.
Okay, guys. See you next week.
My Little Toner.
Bonjour.
Au revoir. And everyone's favourite Curry Kittens.
Goodbye.
And I've been Jack, Bright to Life Light. Thank you guys for all your donations. Please don't forget that we need to survive. And if you can, throw a few coffers into the Patreon. You get bonus content, giveaways, and naked photos of Tony. Good night.
Bye.